Yeah, I remember watching the January 6th events unfold while I was looking at Illinois news and trying to put together the headlines focused on Illinois, but it was also during the pandemic, and people were still watching from afar. However, there were I don't even know, like 1 million plus people in Washington, D.C. that morning, January 6th of 2021. And the images coming out at first showed the sea of people on the open spaces in Washington, D.C., and they were protesting. They were upset at the outcome of the November 2020 election. A lot of people had suspicions. There was a lot of talk on social media to that point. You had conversations about the process which you can go and legally object to the votes in the Electoral College votes, which there is a process, and Democrats have done it in the past by going through and legally objecting in that fashion to question the outcome of certain Electoral College votes. So that process was being talked about, and January 6th was when they were actually going to be certifying those electoral votes by state and declaring a winner through that Electoral College process. But obviously, there were a lot of passions that were increased and led to a riot at the Capitol, if you recall seeing that. Some people were injured, police included, but then we started getting more information about, individuals who were shot at the Capitol that day. One individual was shot, Ashley Babbitt, by a Capitol guard. We didn't find out that Capitol guard's name for months. I think it was a full year before we actually, if not more, found out who shot Ashley Babbitt at the Capitol that day. So that was one person who was killed. And then we got reports of others who either had a stroke afterwards and some others who were injured, but days afterwards, a lot of those stories coming out. So you had a lot of political posturing happening in the immediate aftermath as well, and that is still happening today, where you've got one side saying that this was nothing, it was just some people who were upset and questioning the security protocols of the Capitol that day, including the warnings that were issued beforehand. But where were the riot police? Where was their gear at? Are we looking at all of the problems that happened that led to a breach of the Capitol with some property damage and so on? Or is it now just to focus on trying to message this at what happened January 6th as an insurrection, as a group trying to overthrow the American system of government? So that seems to be where we're at here with this back and forth of January 6th, now heading into the November 2022 elections. But coming up on Thursday during primetime, the January 6th Select Committee in the U.S. House is going to be holding a primetime hearing. Now, this House committee, the history of it, surely you remember, it was created to look at what happened on January 6th after some Republicans saw that the committee was not necessarily going to be looking into all of the security lapses that led to police not being prepared and not actually holding up their barricades, and in some instances waving people to come into the Capitol. And in one case where an individual is charged with trespass, the jury saw that indeed there's video of the guy being waved in by police, so they acquitted this individual of trespass. So there's dozens upon dozens. I was just looking at the DOJ's list of all of the different types of arrests that have been made and so on. And it's long, but there obviously are a lot of people who are charged with trespass, some being found guilty, having to serve 9 days in jail, $500 fine or something to that effect. But did it rise to the level of secession? Did it rise to the level of insurrection? That seems to be what the narrative we're going to hear come Thursday is. So let's unpack some of this. Here is U.S. Representative Liz Cheney talking with CBS on Sunday morning about her concerns and what she's found concerning the investigation thus far that the January 6th committee's done. Now, Cheney's one of two Republicans on this committee. The other one's Illinois Republican U.S. Representative Adam Kinzinger. And this committee was comprised. Republicans saw that they weren't going to get to the bottom of the security lapses, so they didn't put any committee members on there. They did. They tried to put like Rodney Davis and even Jim Jordan on, but Nancy Pelosi rejected those. And then Pelosi appoints two what a lot of Republicans are saying are Republicans in name only, Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger. So you can see that this committee is not truly bipartisan. It's bipartisan in name only, maybe. Some may speculate. So here's Liz Cheney talking with CBS over the weekend about her concerns.
Let me say it this way. I have not learned anything that has made me less concerned.
Well, what's made you more concerned?
Well, I think the extent, the expanse, how broad this multi-pronged effort was.
Was it a conspiracy?
I think certainly, I mean, look, if you look at the court filings,
Do you believe it was a conspiracy?
I do. It is extremely broad. It's extremely well organized. It's really chilling.
So again, that's Liz Cheney talking with CBS over the weekend about her concerns, that she says it's a broad, chilling conspiracy that happened on January 6th. Here is Peter Schiff talking with Face the Nation over the weekend about what he says is likely going to be talked about in the ongoing hearings. And a lot of them have been behind closed doors. They've interviewed people like Ivanka Trump. They've interviewed various other individuals. They've put subpoenas out for others, not really getting a clear response from some. But here's Peter Schiff talking about what he hopes the goal is from the primetime hearings of January 6th.
If you don't deliver a bombshell on Thursday, don't you run the risk of losing the public's attention here?
Our goal is to present the narrative of what happened in this country, how close we came to losing our democracy, what led to that violent attack on the 6th. The American people, I think, know a great deal already. They've seen a number of bombshells already. There's a great deal they haven't seen, but perhaps most important is the public hasn't seen it woven together, how one thing led to another, how one line of effort to overturn the election led to another and ultimately led to terrible violence, the first non-peaceful transfer of power in our history. So we want to tell that comprehensive narrative, and we're aiming at people, an audience, frankly, that still has an open mind about these facts.
Yeah.
We want to counter the continuing propagation of big lies, and that's what our goal is.
So again, Peter Schiff talking about how this isn't necessarily going to get to the bottom of looking into the security lapses, but rather look at getting a narrative out there for the American public. And again, this is a Democrat-led committee being fashioned as bipartisan, but apparently they don't have a full committee. They really haven't delved into some of the serious questions about security lapses and so on. Again, over the weekend, just giving you kind of all sides of this. You heard from Liz Cheney. You heard from Peter Schiff. Now let's hear from the Republican minority leader. You've got Kevin McCarthy. He appeared on Fox News to talk about some of the things that aren't being delved into, and his concerns that this is just merely a politicized committee.
How typical is it to have hearings on a Thursday night at 8 p.m.? I mean, the idea to do this prime time, I want to ask you about that. And also, you sent a letter back to this committee, and you have several questions that you asked, including what is the topics and what do you want to talk about? Did you hear back from this committee?
I had a short answer back from them trying to extend. The other role of this committee, too, they actually said that you could do interrogatory. You could actually send questions to one another. They never allowed that to anybody in the process. And watch who they've gone after and why they've gone after. Where is the legislative purpose of this committee? Are they looking at why this Capitol was not secure? Are they looking at how can this Capitol be better secure? You know, in the Senate research that they found was the riot gear was locked in a bus far down from the Capitol, so the police officers didn't have the security they needed. The police officers didn't have the training that they needed. This is the role that the House should be doing to protect the House for the future, but they think they are a criminal intent. So Mark Levin is right, the Supreme Court is right, but the wrong problem here is you have Nancy Pelosi putting political people on here that you've just talked about earlier that created a whole hoax before to go after President Trump, only for their own political purposes, and that's what they continue to play.
So again, all sides here, what you can expect to see happen January 6th. So I ask you now, are you going to watch the January 6th committee? That's our poll question, and we'll tell you more about that coming up. But 217-629-7970, 217-629-7970. That's the phone number here live and local. I want to hear from you next. Do you plan on watching the January 6th committee on primetime Thursday? So stay tuned. We'll get to your thoughts on that here with WMAY.
Cast your vote with the WMAY mobile app or at WMAY.com/poll.
And today's poll question is, do you plan to watch the primetime hearings of the January 6th committee? Yes or no? As of this morning, we've got 68% of you saying no, you're not going to watch it. About 31% say, yeah, you're going to give it some viewing time. So I want to hear from you next here on WMAY.
Springfield's Morning News with Greg Bishop. Weekdays 6 till 9 on 92.7 WMAY.
Don't deliver a bombshell on Thursday. Don't you run the risk of losing the public's attention here?
Our goal is to present the narrative of what happened in this country, how close we came to losing our democracy, what led to that violent attack on the 6th. The American people, I think, know a great deal already. They've seen a number of bombshells already.
Again, that's Peter Schiff. He is one of the members of the Democratic Party talking about the January 6th committee, and they're going to hold a primetime hearing for the American people on Thursday. Do you plan on watching that? 217-629-7970. Again, 217-629-7970. Several of you on Facebook saying, yes, you will be watching it. I definitely will be watching, says one Facebook user. But a text message coming in says they won't be watching it, and they say that it's a political hack job. And you can kind of see that some of the sentiments around the January 6th committee, obviously in an election year, we're gonna hear a lot more of this all throughout the week leading up to that. Now, the hearing, it's somewhat unique because it is going to be a primetime hearing, and apparently there's going to be a lot of video and pre-produced elements of the hearing. But will they be actually delving into the security lapses that allowed for, barricades not to be properly set up, law enforcement on the scene to not be properly equipped? What about the warnings in advance and even the requests for National Guard presence? All of these things, and ultimately, there's still some people thinking that there were multiple people killed that day on January 6th, and that's just not the case. One person was shot and killed by a Capitol Police officer, and that was Ashley Babbitt. There was a Capitol Police officer that died the following day from a stroke. Some people say that it was because of January 6th. Others say it was a stroke. But you also had another protester that died later on, not on that particular day, but apparently having some kind of medical condition. But regardless, what you have is a long list. I'm still pouring through the DOJ's list here of January 6th Capitol breach cases. A lot of them are not guilty pleas. Some are making plea deals. Some are being found guilty by a jury. Some of the charges include, trespass or obstruction of an official proceeding. And some of the punishment for that could be, a handful of days in jail, some monetary penalties. But I searched this just long list, and I haven't seen anything in here charged as insurrection. Let me see if I can search for conspiracy, because that's what Liz Cheney says. So there are some charges of seditious conspiracy, and we'll see ultimately if that's something that rises to the surface. Conspiracy to obstruct official proceedings, seditious conspiracy, and other charges. So these are Americans who have been charged with a variety of crimes, and people are pleading not guilty. They're going to trial. Others are having a plea deal. And this is America's justice system delving into the January 6th riots that happened at the U.S. Capitol. All right, listen, I was going to take some calls here. You got to be quicker on the phone, but we got to get out of here and head to our next segment where we'll talk about what's going on with the U.S. House race for Congress. So stay tuned. That's coming.